Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Greg Buchert. I'm a lifelong leader and entrepreneur and proud to be the CEO for Makani Science. And here we are at the end of a long week, at the end of a long day. So everybody just pause a second, take a deep breath. It feels pretty good, doesn't it? Well, Makani Science was created because everybody can't do that. And in fact, let me make sure I get the right. Okay. One of our co-founders had a baby born with a collapsed lung. And she was appalled by the fact that she couldn't even hold her newborn baby because of the plethora of wires on the baby. But the second thing was that the respiratory monitor failed to detect the challenges of having a collapsed lung. And it wasn't until the baby was in severe distress that the diagnosis was made. So what's the problem? Currently, respiratory monitors have a lot of challenges. They're often inaccurate, not accessible, and generally just downright uncomfortable. And so that's where, the Joint Commission came out and said, here we are, we've got a respiration rate that could be an early predictor of disease, and yet it's the most inaccurately measured and recorded vital sign. In fact, they went on to make a pronouncement to say that optimal monitoring has 4 characteristics, and they are that it's minimally disruptive, that it provides continuous measurement, real-time communication of data, and they use standard metrics that we all understand. So that's where Makani Science comes in. So what we've developed is a small, stretchable electronic sensor that's, again, minimally invasive, incredibly high reliability. It's easily applied, it's comfortable, and it generates a waveform that is not only continuous in real time like good monitoring is, but it's also accessible either from indexed information in the cloud or in real time. The monitor compares extremely favorably and correlates well with spirometry, the gold standard of good respiratory monitoring. And we are proud to say that we've got 9 patents and are currently working with a number of different academic institutions. And what's been interesting is it wasn't that we went out and sought them, they sought us. They said, you've got a monitor that does something different that no other monitor does, and we want to use it. The waveforms that we generate have unique patterns that are characteristic of the various diseases that we're monitoring. And unlike almost any other monitor, it's very effective during motion. And so you've got a wireless monitor and it can stay on somebody while they're moving. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of market potential for the Makani Science monitor. As you look at respiratory monitoring overall, and it's ironic that I think the last 3 presentations, the markets all end up being about $3 billion. So maybe it's a universal thing, but indeed, that's where respiratory monitors are going. Is the expectation is that it's going to double over the next 10 years. And so there's a huge market potential there for a disruptive monitor. But the fact that there's a large market is a challenge for startup companies that we need to remain focused. I don't want us to have a Me Too monitor. I want us to be able to differentiate ourselves and take advantage of what's unique about our monitor and where do we fit. And so our first generation device measures both rate, and it's for adult populations. And this is where our first application, the FDA, is. But we're focusing on markets where we know that we can provide a difference. So sleep studies and outpatient sedation activities. And so using sleep study as an example, is there's 1 billion people across, 1 billion adults across the world that have sleep apnea, and often it's diagnosed in facilities where they have a sleep lab and do overnight sleep studies. And currently, they tend to measure the respiration using respiratory inductance plethysmography belts. So not only are those belts difficult to pronounce, but they're also inaccurate often because they roll, they're uncomfortable, somebody doesn't sleep well. And so the solution is a respiratory monitor made by Makani that is small, comfortable, allows a good night's sleep, and provides the same or better data. The second area that we're looking at for our second generation device that will be longer lasting and in applicable to everybody from neonates to seniors, is the pediatric market. And what's interesting here is we're first focusing on neonates. And because of the small size of our monitor, we can put it on premature babies that are 27 weeks old and looking at apnea of prematurity. And why is this important? Is because it's a real problem for young babies. And what happens is they stop breathing periodically, their heart rate goes down. Very rarely do they die, but they do. This apnea of prematurity is associated with multiple diseases. And more recently, they've identified that the frequency of these episodes and the duration of the episodes are correlated with challenges in language, intelligence, and motor development as these children age. And so, again, having a monitor that can identify that, potentially interrupt that, or even predict these apneic events can be very persuasive as far as use in the NICU. And the other thing is that current monitors can't tell the difference between central apnea and obstructive apnea, which have dramatically different clinical implications for intervention. Pediatric devices, it's definitely a growing market, growing at an 8% CAGR. And I'll draw attention to two areas of one being respiratory care devices and two NICU devices. And these are the markets where Makani Science will be operating. For the first generation device, we've already talked about being sleep studies and sedation because there's a need there. But with the second generation device, all of a sudden we have a much broader market ranging from use in a hospital to opportunity for remote patient monitoring at home. Comparing ourselves to the competitors, there's a lot of advantages of the Makani monitor. And it's not that, again, we're not a Me Too monitor. We're different because of our small size, our ability to use it in neonates, the fact that it operates so well under motion, as well as the fact that we have this continuous real-time data that can then be analyzed. As far as the product roadmap, we're well on our way to development of our first generation device. We've submitted our 510K to the FDA and anticipate clearance by the end of the year, at which point we can begin the whole commercialization process. And we've already started design of our second generation device. With regard to a financial pro forma, we anticipate having revenue in 2025 and becoming cash flow positive in 2027. In this whole area of monitoring, you can see that there's been multiple notable exits at significant valuations. And one of the telling things I want to point out is here you've got a company that you've seen many times during this conference of Medtronic that was going to scrap all their respiratory monitoring activities and decided to reverse that decision and only, get off of their, remove their ventilator units, but still keep the rest of the respiratory monitoring. So this all bodes well that there's an opportunity for an innovative monitor like Makani's. As you look at the many strategics in this area that operate in the spaces where the Makani monitor will operate, you'll see that Makani is one that will be right in the middle of all these, and it will, and so it can augment their current activities or be just enable their technologies that already exist. We have a team that's composed of multiple individuals that have been in the medical device market for decades. We've got a very involved board of directors that collectively provide all the components that are needed to have a successful company. Our advisory board has multiple physicians in the areas where we'll be operating. And we are currently raising a bridge round of $1.5 million with investment tools that are very attractive for investors. So in summary, we have a really novel, innovative, one-of-a-kind monitor that will be providing data that wasn't previously accessible. We have many large and diverse markets, and so there's lots of growth opportunities for those areas. And finally, we're well on our way to commercialization. And you'll see us in the market as early as next year. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions out in the lobby after we're finished. So thank you for your attention.